The lighting is okay. Welcome to our 4th episode of our Instagram Live that we've been doing. I'm Submissive Tiger. I'm going to be doing a little preview of one of the classes I teach for the collective. Typically I teach with Miss Pancakes, but it's just me solo tonight. I'm going to rearrange the lighting real quick. It's looking a little bright. Okay, I think that's looking a little better. Hi, welcome. Right, so as I was saying, this is a preview for the Marriage of Heaven and Hell, which is a fundamentals class that we teach. It's just kind of a little spin on your typical fundamentals class where we cover all of our usual fundamentals like consent, negotiation, all of the things that you really need to know as you're going into rope and kink. We cover the single column and the double column tie. But the thing that's unique about this class is a lot of the theory that we talk about in the beginning has a lot to do with how rope really affects our minds and what we're trying to create when we are doing a rope scene, and different ways that you can control those outcomes and really makes something that's powerful for you and your partner, or if you're tying alone, just really knowing different ways to manipulate your body and your mind to take you to a higher state of being of some kind, or meditative or relaxing, whatever you're hoping to accomplish. So let's see. So one of the things, even though we do cover a lot of the fundamentals in this class typically, I'm just going to talk about those things as they pertain to this class in particular. I'm not going to go super in depth with our consent negotiation that we typically do. I'm going to talk about those things in regards to our overall topic, but if you're new to kink and you're new to things like negotiation and consent, I recommend the Rope Collective has a site now, theropecollective.com, and under our code of ethics is what we feel a pretty good breakdown of all of these words that we use and why we use them and why they're important. But then I also urge you to do your own research and kind of get a greater understanding of all of these things because they're very central to what we're doing. So the inspiration for this class in particular was because when I first started getting into rope, a lot of people I would talk to about it would say, well, especially in people who are not kink inclined, are very much like, why do you do this thing? I don't understand what you get out of it, basically. And though I could describe how I felt in rope, it's very meditative for me, it's very powerful in all of these different ways. I could articulate how I felt, but I didn't have the greatest understanding of why rope was making me feel all of the ways that I was feeling. And I think it was, though I slowly started to get a little more information here and there about it, I think I really got taught the most when I took a workshop with Neuromancer 28. If anything you want to know about neuroscience and rope, he is the greatest resource. He's just such a wealth of knowledge. And I mean, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole of neuroscience and in a really in-depth way, I recommend his readings on FetLife. Again, it's Neuromancer 28. But that workshop really started to give me a lot of connections as far as being able to articulate why we do feel the way we do in rope and what is going on with our minds when we're doing these things. And one of the things I found really profound was kind of him talking about the dynamic between pleasure and pain and the relationship they have and why it's important and how you can really start to amplify one or the other using the other. And really had me start to think about this yin-yang experience that we're having in rope, and realizing that not only was it a concept that I was gaining in rope, but also that could translate to every facet of my life. And I've really found that now that I do rope a lot, I'm much better at communicating, setting my boundaries, expressing my needs, things like that. And I feel like I've kind of been able to take control of any sort of challenge or pain I'm going through, where I'm not resisting anymore. I really sit and process with these things, and I've found that the benefits that gives me are just so powerful and allow me to get through these periods. And we really kind of emulate that in rope a lot. Is we are creating this challenge and struggle, but we're doing it in such a safe little container that we're really able to control the outcomes of these situations that might be scary or restraining or vulnerable. And as we kind of play with these things in this safer space, we really start to be able to regulate our emotions and kind of have a greater sense of control over how you react to things. And that's huge in rope, and part of why negotiation and consent is the building block, fundamental must-have of rope and kink, because if you don't have those things, you are dangerously doing harm to somebody. Because the key of somebody wanting these things and to go through these challenges and pains is that the trust has to be there, and they have to trust that you are going to take care of them in every single moment, that and every single emotion that they might go through, because we really play with a spectrum of emotions, and you have to be confident that someone's going to take care of you in every sense of the word. That's why aftercare is so huge. Aftercare being after a scene, really not ending the connection and care for the person, and really finding out, okay, what do you need during a scene and after a scene and before a scene, as you're having a communication, that there's needs in that as well, of the things that are important for you to cover and important for the partner that you're going to engage with to cover as well. So I think as we explore these things with each other, and you are in this, oh, hi, Upright. I miss you. So as you're exploring this range of emotion, it's that trust and vulnerability that is changing how you feel about those things. So for instance, if somebody were to just out of the blue hurt you, just someone smacks you across the face, totally unexpected, this person has never smacked you across the face in any context, the shock is going to really make that a painful experience. And that could, and that's not just the experience, but also your mental reaction to it. Because we have to remember that whenever you get hurt somewhere, it's you're not hurt there. You're hurt in your mind. It's your mind's reaction to what is happening to your body. So if something is unexpected, unless it is so intense that you go into a shock state, the pain of it is going to be amplified. If we take that exact same smack and we say, hey, I'm going to smack you right now. On a level of 1 to 10, how hard do you want to be smacked? And the person consents to this and is ready for this smack, your pain tolerance is actually going to really increase in that moment. You are not going to have the same reaction to that as you would if it were out of the blue and you had no control over it. So that's why it's kind of hard to ask a masochist if something is painful. Because even as someone who enjoys types of pain, there's also types of pain I do not enjoy. So it's hard to say, because it really has to do with the state of mind you're in, the activity you're doing, and really the connection and the trust that you have with the person you're doing these fun, crazy things with. So, and we know a lot about how pleasure and pain and those reactions in the mind really play off of each other. So when you're able to really process a challenge, or you just go through any pain of any kind, it actually opens up your circuitry for reward. So anything that happens to you within those moments, after those moments, any sort of positive thing that your mind can attach to, it will be much more amplified. And that's why a lot of people describe being rope drunk, or you can just, someone obviously has been juicing their brain chemicals because they just seem high after a rope session. It's really about that we are accessing these chemicals and really creating these different states of mind. So when we're able to really sit and process, we open ourselves up to all of these goodies of really feeling these physical and mental euphoric moments. And I think that really translates into life in general. You can really start to change the narrative of bad things that happen to you, because not to discredit the intensity of situations and things humans have to go through, but when you're able to, instead of resist that uncomfortability and that bad thing that's happening in your life, you're not really sitting and processing it. It's always going to be on that shelf because you've never really taken it off the shelf and sat with it. So when you're able to kind of sit with these uncomfortable situations in your life, it can change the narrative of how it's affecting you as a person, and really open all these doors for you to accept reward and accept pleasure and really appreciate those things in your life. So I encourage people to look into that, to question why they feel all crazy and awesome on rope and what that means and what it can mean in your life, because I think it's really cool and interesting. So, and I'm sure everyone will as well when you start to really dig into that stuff. Like I said, you can go down the rabbit hole of brains on rope. And so in our class, we really play with that. We, Emily and I developed a pleasure and pain toolbox for the class. So we have different things that might give good feelings, essential oils, really nice fabrics, feathers, things like that. Things that are just positively tantalizing. And then we also have the pain toolbox, which is a lot of, wax and clothespins and things like that. And I might actually do a little wax demo as well. So we have those little toolboxes, and in the class we demo a very safe chest harness that feels very comforting and hugging. Obviously I can't demo that too well on myself as a self-tire, so but that is one of the demos that we do. And then we encourage people, as they're doing this very safe, good feeling tie, to kind of start playing with maybe some more of the pain instruments. And then we do one where it's a really intense tie. It's calf binder, which I will demo in this video. And then we encourage people to play with those kind of more pleasurable items that we have. And then the really fun part is at the end, we have a really long time that people can just play with those things and talk and really negotiate with their partner, the things that excite them, the things that they're like, oh no, not for me. And really create a safer space where we can play with these things and decide, each individual is going to be different and have their limits and their fuck yeses. And kink is so wonderful because that's something that is so important to so many of us in the community. And we really support each other's love for that aspect. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to do a little demo. I'll teach a little calf binder. And like I said, I'm not going to go super in depth with a lot of the fundamentals. So I'm not going to go into a single column tie. There are so many different ways to do a single column tie. And if you really want to know the way I do it, just DM me and I can let you know. But I'm really just do your single column tie, because everyone has different hands, different things they like to do with rope. Sometimes it changes depending on what you're tying. So I encourage you just to do the single column of your choice. And if you don't know how to do a single column, I encourage you to look at some online tutorials, or after this crazy time we're having, go get some in-person lessons. Or there are a lot of really good rope artists who are doing online classes, so you might be able to get some online privates. So reach out to me if you want any resources in that way. So I'm gonna go grab the bite of my rope right here. This is gonna be the center bit. All right, let's see. I wanna get a good angle of my leg for you. I think this is pretty fine, right? Yes, we love it. Okay. So this calf binder in particular is going to be pretty simple, because this is technically a fundamentals class, so I don't want to get too advanced or anything. But you're going to start with a single column right on the top shin. And for new people, you want to really make sure that you're never putting anything terribly high, in this behind your knee. There's a lot of nerve sensitivity in there, and you're much more likely to injure yourself in there. So, and for this calf binder, we're going to put a lot of tension in it. So you want it to be in a really safe place. Typically, when you're doing a single column, if I were to be doing a single column around the wrists or the ankles, I would definitely be leaving a lot more room than I'm about to. But you really want this single column to actually be tight, because number one, you're in a place where injury is very unlikely. You have a lot of protection here as far as muscles and meat go. So you're pretty well protected at this point, and if it's too loose, it will mess with the structure of what we're about to do. And I really like a calf binder for newer people, because it really has a huge effect, and you can totally play with your tension and really like start to understand tension. That's one of the hardest parts to get about rope, is how much and where and when to have tension. All right, so for this part, I'm just gonna go where the rope leads me. There's a few different ways you can do a calf binder. If you want it to be less intense, you can just bind. But one of the ways to make it a little more intense is to actually kind of lift the muscle off of the bone. And as we're coming around, we're gonna keep a lot of tension. So we're gonna really be pulling this as much as you can, because as we go around, we're gonna lose a little bit of the tension, and this is a torture tie, so the tension is what's gonna create that for us. There are ways that you can do this where you lock off, but since this is more fundamentals and I want people to be able to create something even if they don't know a ton, so I'm not going to do any lock-offs until the end. I'm just going to keep wrapping. And I would suggest definitely leaving your bite out of your wraps, because this is a really nice quick release, and if it gets too intense, you can just take that off and it should come undone much easier. And as you're wrapping around, you can just cross over other lines. I like to kind of look for places where there's still quite a bit sticking out, and I'll, go over this bit so it's a little more evenly distributed. So I'm just gonna keep going around, building more and more tension. Starting to get very, very tight. All right. And for new people, be on the lookout for any sort of pins and needles in your feet or numbness. That can be most likely a sign of loss of circulation, but the signs of loss of circulation are very similar to nerve impingement, and nerve impingement's dangerous, so you want to be aware of those sensations. So now I've run out of rope, so I am going to do a little bit of a lock off here. You can do whatever lock off you want. I'm going to do a little half hitch here. Ooh, it's tight, baby. All right. There we go. Oh, and I have a little extra. Whoopsie, my bite wasn't my true bite. It's okay, I can just wrap this guy in here. All right, and we have a pretty successful, intense calf binder. And so these, they create quite a lot of intense feeling, but I really didn't have to do that much in terms of like technical rope stuff. And one of the really amazing things I love about the calf binder is you can really like squeeze it to make it much more intense very easily. Just putting a very tiny amount of pressure on it creates a lot of sensation. And this is one of those torture ties where I really like to play with that caressing aspect as well. Getting in these kind of... Hi, sorry, I lost you all for a minute, but I think I'm back. Yeah, so this is one where like you really are creating this physical intense challenge, and in those relaxing moments in between, it's very effective to give caresses, give things like that that are really nice, or you can really like elevate what's happening. So I'll show a little wax. It's different for everybody, but wax for me is actually very relaxing, meditative. Some people find it really intense, so communicate those things, negotiate those things. But I will show a tiny little wax demo. So the candles I use, they're body wax candles. They're gonna burn at a lower temperature than your run-of-the-mill candle. You really want to stay away from things like soy and beeswax. Those tend to burn at a very high temperature. All right, so I like to get a little bit of the wax going. And obviously, the closer to the skin you are, the more intense it's gonna feel. You can, if someone is reacting like it's really intense, I would suggest just coming from a higher angle. And so if we're just kind of slightly bending it, it'll slowly start to drop. In a horizontal position is where you're really gonna start to see, I don't know if you can, but it really starts to come down pretty heavy when you're horizontal. And you can kind of move it around to get the bulk of the wax. And try to avoid your rope, because wax on rope can be hard to get off. That is a little wax demo for you. So I'm going to slowly untie. I think my thigh has had a good time in this and is ready to come out. But as you're untying this, whenever it's ready for you, because it is just wrapped and I haven't done any lock-offs, just pulling this rope off really fast might be a big shock to the body, and you know, it's much nicer to unwrap slowly because we didn't have any lock-off. So if you let go of this tension, it will unravel very fast. So it's important that you're really being mindful and keeping your tension as you go around to slowly get that blood back and flowing without it causing anything painful to happen. And this is a really great part of this tie, is when the rope comes off. It's very relieving. All right, and she lives. All of the phalanges are functional. We love it. Okay, so that's a little taste. I don't even know how long I've been talking, but it feels like a while. But that was a little taste of Miss Pancakes and my course that we typically do for the collective. You know, hopefully sooner than later we can all be together again. And we would love to see you at a collective class, maybe for this one at some point in the future. If you have any questions about anything I covered, please reach out to me by email, DM. I'm always happy to share resources and answer questions. If you're in a position to do so, I'm taking donations at the Rope Collective on Venmo, so if you are in a position to do so, really appreciate tips. But of course, it's a really hard time for everybody, so I want to be able to keep rope accessible and do as much as I can. Oh, Nature Girl, thank you so much. So thank you all so much for joining me.